How do you take a stand for something that's important to you without it being political or getting yourself in the crossfire? We look at what's happening in the United States, and it is pretty scary. The tension right now that we are feeling is the pressure to pick a side and then to buy the doctrine or the cult completely and fully. So now the question is you being silent deafening because you're not standing up? Is your silence complicit because you are standing with whatever it is? There is a cost of not taking a stand, and there is a cost of taking too much of a stand. How do you take a stand for something that's important to you without it being political or getting yourself in the crossfire or taking a stand? Today, in this solo episode, we are going to explore leadership, boundaries, and the courage to take a stand. Very much probably like many of you. We're looking at what's happening in the world. We're looking at what's happening in the United States, and it is pretty scary. There's a part where you recognize that the media that is being pushed aside by social media, which is not a reputable source of information, is social media allowing to take over, to manipulate the algorithm for one and one reason, to keep you there as long as possible and to get you enraged and upset, because that means you're going to stay a long time, and they can market to you. As a leader, or in leadership, we have an obligation to those that we lead, or the thought leadership that we put out in the world, to be balanced between what we believe in, that will allow us to take a stand for something that we believe in, and to take a clear stand for what we are against. And both of this needs to be done without collapsing into extremism. But I think leadership starts with, what boundaries do you have that are not negotiable? Some of my boundaries are, many of my friends are LGBTQ+. I've been a creative and in the creative industry my entire life. I've worked with so many of them. I've worked with so many non-conforming people that don't aspire to be in church on Sundays and live behind white picket fences, that are colorful and bold and brilliant. I will always take a stand for them. And I will not support any politician or politics that will outlaw the right of my gay friends to have a relationship, to get married, and to be with a person that they love. That's a hard boundary. I also will not allow that anybody in my orbit is being bullied or harassed, and I will care for the people no matter what their status is. I have all kinds of people from all over the world. I'm an immigrant myself. I'm here legally. Many of my friends are in the process, and I respect the laws and the regulation. And very much at the same time, I have equally a boundary that I do not want pedophiles to run free. I do not want murderers and rapists and drug dealers to come to this country and create havoc. So the tension right now that we are feeling in this current climate is the pressure to pick a side and then to buy the doctrine or the cult completely and fully and absorb every little bit of it. That, in my opinion, is false. So this episode is really about leaders taking a stand without losing their humanities. And that really starts with you setting a boundary for yourself. A boundary is not avoidance, but a boundary is an orientation point, and it will tell other people what you stand for and what you will not. I'm originally from Germany. We had to study history as Germans. And what I see is a lot of the playbook of Hitler. The prosecution, the dismantling of laws, the dismantling of the 3 different institutions. It doesn't take much to see that we are following a playbook That is not the playbook of democracy. Now, if you are on the side of the ones that have the upper hand right now, while it might appear to you that it is justified because it is fostering your opinion, what you're really doing is you're giving your rights in the future away. Because if this goes the other way, I believe you probably wouldn't be so happy. So we have to be very careful with this. And leadership here means that a boundary that does not include a stand for something is really not a boundary at all. I am calling you, if you're listening to this podcast, to say, where is my boundary? What do I actually believe in? In this past year, we've all been tested in many ways. The way the economy goes, the way we are working, who we can work with, who we can trust. Are we safe? Are our neighbors safe? A lot of our things have been questioned. We have had uncertainty with the tariffs. We know that there's a volatile personal temper that's at play here that will dictate what the policies are. Now, you might be okay with that. I just don't think this is very particularly good leadership. I also look at the numbers, I follow the money, and I'm going like, well, there's a lot of stuff here that I do not agree with and cannot in good conscience agree with. So now the question is you being silent, deafening, because you're not standing up? Is your silence complicit because you are standing with whatever it is? Is your silence based out of fear? I think we are standing at a crossroads of some very, very hard questions. I can have my belief system and I can have you have yours. And we still can have a civilized conversation. If any part of my conversation, in my complex way of thinking, doesn't stand anymore, I'm allowed to change it. The law of polarity says it exists on one side, it must exist on the other. Well, if the pro-opinion exists, the anti-opinion must exist as well. It has to. It's a law. It's a natural scientific law. So this notion that will force people into complacency or make them complicit is completely impossible because that would be against a law. Now, is either side or either opinion better than the other? That is in the eye of the beholder. But what I am saying that you can take a stand and it does not require you to be in full agreement. And one stand you take, for example, for our LGBTQ community or for our immigrant friends, does not invalidate your entire other belief system. If you are conservative, by all means, you can. But if you're conservative, it doesn't mean that you're okay with people getting shot in the back. And if you're liberal, on the same token, I never thought it was a brilliant idea to have transgender surgeries for illegal immigrants in the prison. And God only knows if that wasn't a buzzword. I've had my personal challenges with naturally born males that are transgender participating in women's sports. I don't think that's fair to women, just from the physical makeup of this person. That does not change my stance on LGBTQ+, but that does have a seemingly paradox and contradictory opinion. We take this back to spiritual principles, obviously, and to strategy and what it means for business. There is a cost of not taking a stand, and there is a cost of taking too much of a stand. At the end of the day, the human experience is, in really all religions, to say we support all other people regardless of their belief system, regardless of where they are, their wealth. We believe that God makes no mistakes. So if God makes no mistakes, then LGBTQ+ cannot be a mistake because God made them. This is how they feel. There is no way to reform. And equally, if we are allowing identities to collapse under pressure and we are hiding, we are now denying ourselves the truly free expression of ourselves. And that is why we are in America. That is why we live in a free world. That was always the point. The point was always that we are here as our best expression of ourselves. My father gave me an important lesson when I was very young. He said, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do or the bravado you get or the medals you get, but at the end of the day, you have to look in the mirror. And then you have to go to bed with the person that looks back at you from the mirror. And what it means, you can do whatever you want on the outside and social media, and you can do all the comments that you want. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to look in the mirror and say, I'm okay with who I go to bed with myself. And if we come from this golden rule where we allow ourselves to participate, we should be okay, really. Because then we're participating in life from the standard of allowing others to be and asking them to allow us to be at the same token. So how does this show up in life? Well, in my particular instance, your body knows before your brain knows. So a lot of times these things show up as discomfort, as headaches, as physical symptoms. In my particular case, the stress of last year and the aftermath of the fire resulted in a very serious health scare, hospitalization, emergency surgery, and all of this in the exact same dates that we had these anniversaries. I got sick on the night of the 3rd, which was the night of our wedding anniversary. I was in the emergency room on the 7th, which was the day of the fire, literally burning up from the inside, going into my first set of surgeries and procedures. And then my husband picked me up on the 11th, flew to Las Vegas, and we arrived both back here in Los Angeles exactly 1 year after we came back from Costa Rica, returned from our honeymoon after our house burned down. You want to take a look at what your body is telling you at the same token, because it's really stressful out there. And I talked today to someone who says she's having panic attacks. This feeling of being out of control in this world right now, having no say over what's happening because seemingly the politicians we elected, the policies we've been used to are all being thrown out and overturned and not followed. And we don't even know what we have control over and what we don't. And then it feels like there is a whole other side of people that are rejoicing in that because they are the ones who want to give the order and they want us to be submissive. It's not working so well for the creatives. That's not working so well for the intellectuals. And as I said, if you think this is working for you right now, there'll be a time when it's not working for you, and then you'll know what it feels like. So why engage in something like this? It makes no sense to me. One of the things that I want to also share with you is what has helped me to go through this sometimes very challenging process right now to figure out what my voice is and who I want to be in all of this. Now, I've already been doxxed, and I've gotten in front of the MAGAs once before, when they were looking for an aging feminist, angry woman over a certain age, ready to blame me for all the terrible things that I had done to poison all the good women with my thoughts, which only stemmed from one and one thing only, that I hated men. Well, that's not really quite the truth, isn't it? But that's how it was presented. So I have absolutely no desire to go there again and get myself in front of this angry mob and fear for my life. So I wonder, what do we do to find a way we can stand up for our belief system and at the same time not jeopardize our integrity, but also allow room for really this dissipation of the cult-like performance? You don't have to be all in. You can have conservative values, but not be for this. You can have democratic values and not be for this. So the first step is, what are you grateful for? That's really what helped me in the last couple of months, and especially since I've had this health scare, is what am I even grateful for? And feeling into the gratitude I have over things I have control over, even though if I didn't have any control over them. I was extremely grateful that I was able to make health-based decisions based on medical needs and not financial decisions. I was incredibly grateful that I felt really well taken care of in a great hospital in Las Vegas, that I had a team of people around me that really, really took good care of me. I felt incredible gratitude for all of you who send me messages and get well notices and reached out on social media to wish me well. It just shows that what I do resonates with you. And that's really what's important, is that you find, instead of the anger, these moments of gratitude, to be in the place of what you want to build, not what you reject. Because in spirituality, where the energy goes, the action follows, right? So if I put too much energy and thought into the negative, unfortunately, you creating more of the negative. So you have to figure out how to switch this around and create something positive. And in growth architecture, we know that everything moves in waves. It's always amazing to me, and maybe it's because I've been around long enough to say that people that are now on this side are so joyous and so excited because they finally had their moment, and it's going to change and everything is going to flip over, and then you will not be on top. You will be at the bottom, because by the nature of the law of polarity, life goes in waves. It goes up and down. You will not always be on top, and you will not always be in the underbelly. So sometimes you just have to sit this out. So for leadership and for business, what do you even do with that? It's not easy right now. But my recommendation to you is you need to find something that you are feeling very strongly about, and you need to pick a messaging around a particular topic that you are willing to take on. And it's not everything. And especially if it makes it difficult for you, you can either run away and avoid it, or you can see how you can deal with it to make it more aligned. Founders of the future, in my world, and that does not have to be your world, but in my world as a founder of the future, I want to create a world and participate in any way I possibly can to have those who come after me use these systems, processes, and methods I've developed to take their ideas and make this and shape this world. I'm no longer shaping this world. I have no quandaries about that. But I certainly can provide the infrastructure to do so, because I have the shortcuts. I've built the systems. So now, if you are a founder of the future and you are going out and you now are really considering, like, what can I speak up and do I have to be political? I don't think you can look away right now. American citizen is shot in the back, and there's no consequences as of the time of this recording. It's just like it never even happened. We don't know who this person is who did it. We don't know where he is. We don't know what consequences are. Is there an investigation? We know that facts have been misrepresented. How can you not take a stand right now? You're fighting for your right to speak in your own country. Now, you cannot speak for or against everything, but you certainly can be deliberate about figuring out what it is that your boundary is that you want to stand up for. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be controversial. But I don't think that we as leaders and founders of the future can be quiet, because there's so much pressure in the system right now and so much force. And the only reason there's so much force in the system is because the people that have created the system are destroying it and trying to keep it alive at the same time, which is mind-blowingly idiotic. How can you dismantle the system that you yourself build with all the rules and regulations and yada, 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 and now you take it down? But you take it down with so much force because you're still sort of defending parts of it while you're taking it down at the same time. That only means that they know how much they're threatened, how much this structure is threatened. And the system's shit. It's not worked for a very long time. So let's just allow it to be dismantled. But then who's building the future? You are. And that's why it's important that you not stay quiet right now, because you're going to have some ethics and a belief system on what you will allow. Because otherwise, you're going to be building another wishy-washy system where we don't take care of everybody, where we create systems where corporations, medical companies are running the country. I mean, we are at a point where a company like Allergan is determining that the new look of beauty is that a woman's upper lip, or lower lip, I don't even remember, must protrude by 1 millimeter as the new beauty symbol. Now everybody looks like a duck. That can hardly be a new beauty symbol. It's a pharmaceutical company that does this. Are you even okay with that? Why are we buying that? So that's the boundary you need to have. Look in the mirror and determine what your own beauty symbol is. I mean, it's just crazy to me. So you can only build the future that you want to live in if you clear what that future is. You cannot stay in complacency and compliance to this insanity and not have an opinion about what you're building, because it will fall apart. And all the people that have been misled by this, the farmer that has nobody to do the harvest because they're immigrants. And without them, our entire economy, our food chain won't work. So be careful what you're rooting for, because you might hurt yourself more than anybody else. And as far as leadership is concerned, leadership is never about being liked. The air is very thin at the top. Leadership is about your ability to lead. Leading in easy times does not require any skills. Leading in times like this does. What does that mean for you? How do you manage that? How do you reconcile that? That's not done with anger. That's done with conviction and clarity. And while I am so tempted at times to tell quite a few people to go to hell, I always ask myself, is this the kind of leader I want to be? Somebody said, don't get your panties in a twist. My panties really are nobody's business. And there's a lot of interesting humor in this too, because you're now seeing the best and the worst of humanity, because they've been allowed to show who they are, how manipulative the environment is, and how easy they fall for it. Man, do I remember all the stories of what we learned in Germany after World War II, where you ask, how can something like this happen? I tell you how it can happen just like this, and it's already happening right now. And some of you may say, well, Beate is really not such a big deal. Remember when in the first time it was all a joke? It's not a joke. This is exactly the playbook. So what side of history are you going to stand on? And what side of the future are you going to stand on? Because you can stand in the future and help people to find you and follow you to a safe place where they can connect and interact with you. Or you can try to stand behind a whole bunch of stuff that you may not even fully wholeheartedly believe in, but you like it because some of it follows your own belief system, and cheer them on to do more of what they're already doing. That's not the future. That's a dismantling of a system that's already in place. You're just going down a road of something that's already not working. So as leaders, this is my message really with this podcast today. I think the only way we get this right is by having our own faith clearly defined, by understanding that we are made in the likeness and image of God, that we are having power and ability and a voice for a reason, and we must use it for the greater good of all. And I thank you for listening to this today. This was really more a philosophical podcast than anything else. But I do believe that we are seeing many leaders being called to step up. And I am calling you to step up. Step up in the best way possible. Set your boundaries. Speak from your heart. And design the future you want to live in. And then invite as many people to follow and come along with you as you possibly can. And with that, I say goodbye. That's it for this episode of the Business Growth Architect Show, Founders of the Future. If you're done playing small and ready to build the future on your terms, subscribe, share, and help us reach more trailblazers like you. And if you're serious about creating, growing, and scaling a business that's aligned with who you are, schedule your Uncovery Session at uncoverysession.com. Lead with vision. Move with purpose. Create your future.